Le voyeur, on n'a pas. On est que sur toi. Tu regardes que dans le miroir. Tu te regardes simplement quand on parle.
You ready, Mr. Rich?
I'm ready. I've been ready for some minutes now.
Who asked the question?
Steve, he's behind you. Just you just listen.
Do you see Steve at all?
Yeah, of course.
That's good. That's good to see him.
How would you locate yourself?
I was a ghostwriter. You know what that is?
No.
Somebody who rides with the ghosts or future ghosts. You know what that is?
No.
That's somebody who opens up the curtain on some of the shit that goes on in this crazy world.
In 1967, the World's Fair in Montreal is a phenomenon. Attracting more than 50 million visitors, sleepy, remote Canada is suddenly the center of a new global consciousness. The most astonishing and disruptive show at Expo is in the Medi Theatre. 2.5 million people wait for hours to experience a taboo-busting film and theatre piece called Miracles in Modern Medicine. 20,000 of them faint while watching it.
Time magazine wrote an article and they had the title say, medical film knocks them dead at Expo 67.
Never seen on television, never seen in a film. Everybody wanted to see this. So we rushed in. There was no seating. You were standing up to watch the films, and the screens were up above your head.
So they start with a birth on screen, which previously had been explicitly prohibited from being shown in any film that was for the general public.
One was showing the birth of a baby. The other one was a brain operation.
A little boy with the open heart and the cesarean cut. So it was, to most people, shocking.
We were crushed in as close as we could get. There was a lot of, oh.
We had to beef up our first aid station. We never thought that we'd have to take care of 2, 3, 4 people at a time.
If I had fainted instead of throwing up, I don't think I'd have fallen down. I think I would just have been held up by everybody else's shoulders.
And people were carried out on stretchers, you know, and then someone would get off the stretcher and say, can I come and go back and see the rest with the same ticket?
Expo 67 comes to an end. Miracles vanishes. The groundbreaking film is lost. 50 years later, a historian rediscovers Miracles in Modern Medicine in Canada's National Archives.
Essentially, it had been lost for half a century through vague cataloging, through the lack of credits on the film, no registry anywhere of who the artists were who made it.
Le Medi-Théâtre présente Miracle de la médecine moderne.
Medi-Theatre presents Miracles in Modern Medicine.
So it was an extraordinary discovery and a great puzzle and a great mystery, because it was apparently a documentary film, standard 60s documentary narration about medical procedures in a hospital. But in fact, what we were looking at was something much different. It was a cinematic spectacle, an extravagant one, using all kinds of incredible techniques. And I wanted to know more. I was intrigued. I found this to be an extremely compelling film. And I wanted to know more about it. Where did it come from? What, in fact, was it?
I was born in New York. I was born in Woodstock. I was born late at night, and no one is looking, and no one is looking. I was born in Detroit. I was born in Memphis. I was born to live life through music. I come alive through music. I come alive. I was born in Halifax. I was born.
Ha-ha. Roberto J.
Ed,
Ed Rich.
how are you?
Very good. Good to see you, Steve.
Wow, look at this place.
It's fantastic, huh?
Yeah, it's Hollywood in Paris.
Yeah. He's a very disagreeable guy down there.
Paris is a city full of spies.
And the phone rang, and there was this very impressive voice saying, Mr. Robert Cordier, this is Peter Honden. I'm calling you. I don't have much time because I have to be in the airport. I'm going back to Barcelona. And I wanted to talk to you about a project. I am at Mr. Stamfley's gallery on Park Avenue, on Madison Avenue. And I have about half an hour, and it's a project for Expo 67 in Montreal. So I went down and I met this man who was very tall and very remarkable. And he said, I'm doing this thing, and he explained to me some phantasmagorical project that sounded like some insanity. He said, and there's going to be 6 stages and screens, maybe, if you can. And I said, what is it about? You know, because he said, it's about medicine. I said, good, because I don't know a thing about medicine.
Docteur, vous avez visé l'électrode vers la cible sur la grille quadrillée.
Comment corrigez-vous pour les variations individuelles?
How do you correct for individual variations?
What really decided me to do it is when I started to meet some of the doctors. And I said, these people are as crazy as I am, so that we can do something together. You know, we always had to be cleaned up, you know, sanitized, you know, and we had to sanitize the equipment. I mean, it was a crazy thing. Some of the things we were told, you know, we're going to have to stop. You know, the operation stopped. You have to have what you needed to do. You know, so there was no second chance. They were not going to do the operation again. So to me, it reminded me of theater. It's done, and it works or it doesn't work, but it has to be done.
This is a really important film. So all of the films that have been made for the general public up until this point were very contained within the boundaries of acceptable health topics. They weren't pushing any boundaries. Medical films that were supposed to be only shown to medical audiences, so that would be doctors and sometimes nurses, they could cover all kinds of really graphic material, but there were all kinds of regulations in place to really keep them out of the public eye. And the thing that this film does that is so radical and amazing is that it gets rid of all of those restrictions, and it says the general public needs to see what the doctors see. And that's how we envision presenting modern medicine.
Ça, c'est à Paris avec Ricardo, Loulou de la Falaise et Robert Cordier, photo de Von Shaven. Ça, c'est Ivy qui filme la fin de Fenderlandien à New York, on the roof,
Yep.
with Barbara Koppel, who got 2 Oscars later. And that's in Barcelona when we were doing the film on Beaufil, with Beaufil's wife, his girlfriend Loulou de la Falaise, and Paloma Picasso, with whom he was trying to get laid. And this is Didi, my wonderful friend, with whom I work in Montreal and other places, and in Paris for over 10 years, and in New York for several years.
I met Peter Honden in Berlin. I was a student of graphic design, and through a friend of mine, I got a little job pasting up letters in one of the American trade pavilions, which was done by Peter. Then Expo 67 came up, and he asked me if I wanted to work on that pavilion. And then at the end, I spent 5 months in Montreal supervising the installation of all this.
Okay, this is a first reading of a wonderful play by a young playwright. It's in English. It's called A Coronation Chicken. This is the first time I'm going to listen to the actresses. So I'm going to shut my mouth and listen to them and see what they have to propose. And the playwright is also going to shut his mouth, if he can. And let's try to get some listening and put our attention on the other and not on ourselves. Okay, the secret is on the other, not in ourselves. D'accord? Okay. If you shave, the secret is in the blade, not in the skin, not in the soap. Okay? The blade does it. That's it. We're looking for the blade.
You can use a little blade there.
Okay.
Fire!
stampede. What are they, a herd of cows?
This is Leslie Chatterley, the famous, with sardines and inspiration in Cadaqués, not far from Port Ligat, where Dali lived in the summer that we used to spend around him. A wonderful songwriter and writers of books for children, Shel Silverstein, who wrote for Johnny Cash, A Girl Called Sue, and many others. This is my friend Eva Garner and my daughter, and James Bolden, who's godfather of my daughter, my sister, and this is Elvin Jones, drummer of Duke Ellington and John Coltrane and many others. Now this is me. Hey, Robert. Yes. That's Andy Warhol's montage for me of it's Candy Darling and Taylor Mead, one of his movie star, and I done a play with him. So I have some pictures from the carnival in Banche to show you with me in it. They are rare photographs with the carnival.
Who's the kid with the big cock here?
That's me.
You in a tree?
Yeah, on a tree. That's on a tree on my grandfather's garden house. What are you doing opening those windows? There's nobody there.
So this is the Jean Genet you did at the Mary Stuart.
Yeah, that's when I did Jean Genet's Haute Surveillance, Death Watch, which is a legendary play of the 20th and 21st century. But this is the first time it's done with women in jail. Usually it's about guys, it's about gay guys in jail. And then Genet suggested to me, why don't you someday do a play of mine, you know, with girls instead of guys? Women are so much more brutal. Mm. And if you read what's on top,
homme
ou femme, monstre à coup sûr, men or women, monster surely.
Mm.
This is a very complicated, complex time. You become a part of the beat poetry movement.
Well,
is that fair to say?
Yeah, I didn't become part of the beat movement. I had friends which were called Allen Ginsberg and Michael McClure and a lot of the other people that were eventually defined as the Beat Generation, but at the time it was not called the Beat Generation. It was called a bunch of crazy guys going around writing stories on the road.
It's interesting that how he went from a French avant-garde scene straight into the Beats because, well, I guess because he met them again quite soon after his arrival in New York. The Beats actually, one of the defining global characteristics is the French surrealism influence as well.
And this is the Ginsberg, the original French copy of Howl, Ginsberg by Allen.
What does this say?
This copy belongs to Robert Cordier, with gratitude for his patient help, eyes years ago, in rewriting, arranging to translation Allen Ginsberg.
Can you read the first line for me?
J'ai vu les plus grands esprits de ma génération détruits par la folie, affamés quelques-uns, se traînant à l'aube dans les rues d'Aigle à la recherche d'une furieuse piqûre.
It's remarkable that you can still find that translation today. And when you hear Cordier talk about that sort of legendary moment when he sat with Ginsberg and, well, he went through the whole poem. This whole poem is, you know, surrounded by this halo of fever and the night, and it was written maniacally. Well, that's a very Beat thing, right? They're sitting at the typewriter, writing nonstop. And so they had a very Beat moment, I believe, rewriting or revising that translation together. He trusted Cordier for that, right? Well, that says a lot about who he might have been at the time and who we know him to be today.
Okay, so what do we have here? This is a photo of you and Corso and Jouffroy and Lebel. What's going on here?
Grégory Corso a peur de tomber. He's scared of falling down from the statue because there was snow. He said, I don't want to get up there, motherfucker.
This is Corso here, huh?
Voilà. And then he held the knee. This is the photo that, in a way, launched the Beat Generation in Paris. Ça, c'est Alain, Robert et Lebel. Et il y en avait une autre avec Marcel Duchamp, mais on l'a jamais retrouvée.
Ah oui, c'est écrit, oui.
Ça, c'est la lecture. Ça, c'est la lecture à Paris.
Ah.
Et ça, c'est à New York.
Ah, c'est ça.
Au Living.
Ah oui, c'est ça.
Il est beau.
Oui, hein?
C'est le plus beau chat que j'ai jamais vu.
Est-ce que vous pourriez nous parler un petit peu de ce moment-là, avec ça devait être quelque chose d'être avec Grégory Corso pour la... C'était le moment, les Beats, pour arriver un peu en Europe et en France, non? Avec l'hôtel rue Gilles-Coeur.
Alain était un des rédacteurs de Art Spectacle, où on avait publié les photos certaines des photos, 5 pages de filles. Et il a beaucoup aidé à lever tout ça, qui était un inconnu en France à l'époque.
Oui.
Et j'ai dit, Alain, tiens, j'ai des photos que j'ai prises en Amérique, etc. Moi, j'ai écrit 50 pages. Je croyais écrire un petit machin. Il m'a dit, ils ont presque tout publié. 5 grandes pages. Art Spectacle, c'était le grand format. C'était...
Oui.
Je me souviens d'être arrivé aux 2 Magots dans l'après-midi ce jour-là, et tout le monde avait l'Art Spectacle avec les beats.
Est-ce que vous avez de la nostalgie?
Non.
Tous les deux?
Aucune nostalgie.
87, moi j'ai 82.
Oui. Oui. Vous êtes jeune, mon cher ami.
Oui, je suis jeune. On est jeunes tous les deux. Okay, so this is at my house, and
This is your apartment, right? Oh, this is the funeral of the Beat Generation.
that's happening. We had started with the big writers. Christopher Street. This is Shel Silverstein, the well-known songwriter for Johnny Cash. That's me and Howard Hart. That's Norman Mailer in the back.
Who's this handsome? Who's this handsome guy here?
And this handsome guy is me, myself,
And this
coming
is
back from Paris.
In January 1961, in his New York apartment, he staged, and that's the word, because apparently there were like mock coffins and everything there. I think his friend James Baldwin was there and a few other people, and he sort of staged this Beat funeral. You have to think that by the beginning of the 60s, the Beats were just beginning to be something here in Europe, but by 61, Cordier says it's over, right? And that tells you how, a very, very clear mind that could read ahead of time and be like, okay, this was started as a true thing. Now it's already becoming hype. I hate hype. Doesn't mean anything to me. This is dead for me, right?
Cordier was clearly this switch point for transatlantic modernism, right? And he worked with, a swarm of really fabulous artists of the mid-20th century, avant-garde, we can say. But I think that's not sufficient. I think we need to ask, why were so many of Cordier's collaborations with gay male artists, right? I mean, in the orbit of directly collaborating with, indirectly working with, staging the works of, right? I mean, there's Baldwin, Ginsberg, John Ashbery, Andy Warhol, right? I mean, he's in this incredibly rich constellation of artists who happen to be gay. But I don't think he just happened to work with these people in some ways. It's not about his own sexuality. I think it's about, in general, I don't know if Cordier would put it this way, but it's about his queering of friendship, of aesthetic collaboration.
You see, the blood goes around and around.
Le sang tourne et tourne, bleu et puis rouge après le rein artificiel.
Blue and then red after the artificial kidney.
Monsieur Lebeau, pouvez-vous nous dire comment est la vie? Enfin, la vie sous dialyse.
In the life of Cordier, the expo moment is not in any sense the apogee of his creative expression. It's one of so many different masks that he wore or elements of his career that he went through. But it's the entry point for Stephen into this world that's brought out all these riches of the beat movement and theater in New York and in Paris. He has these links to such a wide range of genre, be it painting, poetry, filmmaking, theater. I can't think of anyone else that has something comparable.
Yeah, he's sort of the ultimate interstitial figure who brings all these networks together. And there should be a word for that kind of figure who, if you follow them, they take you to really interesting places. And they show you that networks you never thought were connected were fundamentally intertwined.
I met Baldwin in Paris the night I was going back to the States with my first wife to open my first theater, which I did. I had an appointment for a drink with John Ashbery, the Pulitzer Prize winner, who had been my translator and translated and published poems of mine. And he had a little old black fellow with him who was named James Baldwin. And I said, "What do you do?" He said, "Well, I'm a writer, and I've written a book about homosexuals. And I'm having a hard time getting it unprinted." And it was
Giovanni's Room.
Giovanni's Room, his famous book at the time. And we spent the evening until the time to go to the train to Le Havre to go back to the States. And Jimmy said, "I'm going to send you my play, my first play, and maybe you want to direct it." But I had a theater with a permanent troupe, and I didn't have 17 black people to do the thing. And there was not a white. I said, "Where am I going to get that? We're doing summer stock in New Jersey in Tinton Falls." And then Jimmy wrote a play called Blues for Mr. Charlie.
Blues for Mr. Charlie was a play that Baldwin wrote. It's set in a mythic, segregated small town in the Deep South. He calls the two sides of the town, Black Town and White Town, in order to really foreground allegorize the racial tension.
And I was in Paris directing Othello, and I was going to do Shadow of Agamemnon, Sean O'Casey. And I went for Christmas to see my daughter in New York. And I called Jimmy, who was in New York, and he said, "Motherfucker, you gotta come and help me. Because they're doing my play at the Actors Studio, but they're driving me crazy."
Because there was so much conflict between the director at the time, Frank Corsaro, and Baldwin. You know, Baldwin wanting to direct the play into more of a Genet-like avant-garde aesthetic, right? Where you're dealing with large, ritualized political passions versus the kind of psychological nuance that Corsaro and the other members of the studio were expecting. He called in his old friend Cordier, of course, who had, because of his training and background in European theater, in Artaud's theater of cruelty, as well as being well-versed with, Genet's aesthetic. He could see that what Cordier could offer was a way of introducing that aesthetic into the play. So although Cordier gets credit, I believe, as musical director, he in fact was the de facto director of the play. During rehearsals, he took over, it seems, from Burgess Meredith, who was the director selected to replace Corsaro.
How was the play when you read it?
The play lasted about 7 hours when I read it. It was this thing. And I said, "Jimmy," I said, "we got to cut it down." And he said, "But cut it down in what way? I mean, that's the story." I said, "But it's not 500 pages story. It's a play. It's not Moby Dick."
L'histoire d'une victime de la thalidomide, apprenant à se servir de mains électroniques, un exemple d'instrument fabriqué par l'homme pour aider les handicapés.
Well, you have to realize that we were very close. 5 years from the thalidomide, which was a big trauma here during those 5 years. And I was taken into this room with all these children and this little girl walked in with all the balloons and her tricycle. She was a complete artist. That was when they were building the robots, the Russians and the Canadians. And she didn't like the robot. Oh, she reminded me of Marilyn Monroe, let's face it. She looked like some Marilyn Monroe whose arms had been cut. You know, she was a wonderful child. And she was very observant. She would watch things. And then she'd jump in the pool and was showing you she could swim. Yeah, she was a wonderful little girl. We can talk about Dali. No, I mean, I was at the time living on 55th Street. Dali was, when he was in New York, once a year, every year, stayed at the San Regis Hotel. One day I was walking from my house and I crossed in front of the hotel and Dali came out of the hotel and he went like this, saluting me. And I said, my God, it's Salvador Dali. I had never met the man, I didn't know the man, but it was, why did he salute me like this? So I went my way and he went his way and I didn't see him again for a long time. And then one day I was finishing lunch at the Russian tea room and Dali walked by and he stopped at our table and he said, bonjour. Est-ce que vous pourriez me donner l'adresse de Michelangelo Antonioni, le cinéaste italien, que je veux lui entrer en conférence avec Dali? And I said, yes, of course. I don't have the address on me, nor the phone number on me, but I can get it for you. He said, je reste à l'hôtel de San Regis, et vous l'apportez là, et je vous ferai signe, voilà, monsieur. And I was very certainly the only man in New York possessor of the address of Michelangelo Antonioni and Monica Vitti, who lived in the same building in Rome, but not in the same apartment. So I thought that I'd go to Tiffany, the bookshop, the jewelry store and bookshop, etc., to get. And I went there and I bought a series of little postcards, and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I wrote the address of Michelangelo Antonioni on each one of them. And this is another one in case you lose it, and in case you lose it. And I brought it to the San Regis, to the caissière at the San Regis, who took it. And I said, this is for Mr. Dali. Then about a couple of hours later, I got a phone call. Allô, est-ce que c'est Monsieur Robert Cordier? C'est ici le Salvador Dali qui vous appelle de la Grand Hôtel de San Regis et qui vous remercie de votre esprit très surréaliste d'avoir mis beaucoup d'enveloppes parce que je perds tout et je perds mes chaussettes aussi. Alors maintenant que vous avez un esprit si surréaliste, j'aimerais vous rencontrer et que nous ayons une meilleure conversation. And I went to see Dali that afternoon around 4 or 5 o'clock, and that's how we started our relationship.
Not every white playwright, intellectual would have become involved with civil rights. Why? How did you become so?
I don't know. I mean, I know because what the story was that two kids came to see me, Gil Moses and John O'Neill, and they had known about Brecht and they knew about things, and they had started this little theater in the South, from New Orleans to Mississippi and Louisiana and the southern states.
Why did they look for you? Why did the young Gil Moses
consult
with you about this project?
Because I had the done this big thing on Broadway. You know, the Blues Mr. Charlie was done in the biggest theater in New York.
So they had done one season already.
They had done one
63,
season,
64.
including Waiting for Godot, with white faces because they were black. Gil and John were black.
Why? What these
I don't know
you're
why.
an established theater director.
I don't know why people do things.
And you decide to help out these young guys. Was it?
No, I
did
didn't
Baldwin-
decide to help anybody. I decided to do theater where there was not theater, and I think theater should be everywhere.
So it was in your mind a great project, a great opportunity to.
Well, it
get
was
involved.
just not a great or small opportunity. It was an opportunity to do theater at the right time. Maybe it wasn't quite the right time or the right place, but it certainly happened, which is, you know, one of the reasons of the theater is now, to do it now, today, ik en nunk. And that we did.
You also wrote some pieces with Gil Moses. What
Yeah,
were the
we
nature
did.
of
We
those?
wrote two shows, the Jonesboro story and another one about the events of those young kids being killed for signing signature and stuff. And we participated, as we say. We had a big board of governor with Bob Dylan and Paul Newman and Burgess Meredith and all sorts of big stars. Supporting us, but supporting us with a little bit of money and a lot of enthusiasm, but nobody came and showed their ass in the South. They were scared. And they were right to be scared because it was dangerous. See what happened to Martin Luther King and a few other people. I went in jail 17 times.
You guys were arrested for vagrancy, in quotation
Well,
marks.
anything that came in the head of the idiots arresting us.
So you tried to eat in a segregated diner, is that right?
No, we didn't try to eat in a segregated diner. I wanted a beer cold and not a beer in a bag. And they gave me a beer in a bag and I wouldn't take it. And they called the cops and the cops arrived and put us in jail. And that evening we were on the Huntley Brinkley show, watched by 25 million American or more.
Now, I want to ask you about two actors because
Denise Nicholas was then married to Gil Moses.
She's beautiful. She was soon after played the guidance counselor on Room 222.
That's right.
Which was a great show of my
And
youth.
Roscoe Orman, who became one of in that famous
Sesame Street.
Sesame Street.
Were the people in the Free Southern Theater with Denise and Roscoe, Gil, were they good actors?
Absolutely. If they were not good actors, they had no business being there. And they were good actors and good people. Very good people.
Avant tout, c'était un homme qui est toujours, mais qui était complètement hypnoïde. C'est quelqu'un qui a rencontré énormément de gens. Nous, quand on entendait parler qu'il était ami avec certains grands acteurs américains ou qu'il avait fait le premier clip de Jim Morrison ou d'Aretha Franklin, qu'il avait connu tellement de gens, il avait fait tellement de choses qu'on pouvait même douter de la véracité de ce qu'il pouvait dire. Et puis après, en le connaissant, voilà, on s'apercevait que c'était véritablement un maître du théâtre, un maître du cinéma, surtout un maître de la direction d'acteur. Au-delà d'être un grand metteur en scène, ce qu'il est, c'est un maître de l'acteur.
That's true, and it's not you.
And it's not you. It's not who you are, darling.
What Brecht called a street accident. Isn't that right? You saw me, right? You saw me. She pushed me.
From day to day, creeps in this petty pace.
The matter of the relationship between these two women. Now, can you imagine something like specifics? You know, again, we go back to Shakespeare.
Until the last syllable of recorded time.
Shakespeare, what's his name?
You know that feeling you have when you've already seen or experienced.
You know that feeling you have.
You know that feeling you have when you've already experienced or seen what's happening.
That's his name. That's his name, Shakespeare.
What's his name?
Shakespeare. We know that Romeo obviously was so touched that he fainted. He didn't pull his hair and all that. He went out of the world.
Yeah.
Shakespeare thing, all the world's a stage, all the world's a stage, and we're all actors.
So this is Emmanuelle. She's a wonderful actress. Started on film with Eric Romer, the first part. And then she did a play of Xavier Duranger from my school with Vincent Cassel, Gérald Laroche, Pascal de Molon, and herself. Then she went to America and we lost her for a while.
25 years.
25.
Il aime les acteurs. Et il y a des tas de metteurs en scène qui n'aiment pas les acteurs, malheureusement. Et lui, il sait faire sortir des gens, des jeunes, de pratiquement, je ne vais pas dire n'importe qui, mais presque. C'est-à-dire que c'est le talent aussi de faire éclore le talent dans l'autre. Et ça, c'est Robert.
C'est une pièce, non?
Ouais.
Avec un grand centre national, puis un Avignon au festival. Puis, et puis elle a fait un film avec Godard. Puis après le film avec Jean-Luc Godard, elle est revenue travailler avec moi dans Miss Julie in Louisiana de Strindberg.
Qui m'a aussi fait comprendre et qui m'a fait toucher ce truc de tragédienne, peut-être que je développe, ou cette sensibilité que j'ai et que je ne savais pas que j'avais du tout. Et effectivement, c'est Robert qui m'a ouvert à ça.
Elle est endormie.
Under anesthesia?
Tout le cerveau dort.
The whole brain.
Le cerveau ne sent rien.
The brain isn't sensitive.
So I asked the nurse and I said, "Where's the doctor?" She said, "I don't know, he's preparing himself." And it took about an hour and a half and no Dr. Bertrand. And then one of the assistants said, "He's in the booth in the hallway." And I went in the hallway in the booth. I said, "But what are we waiting for?" And he looked at me, and he looked like Gary Cooper, and he said, "I'm waiting to be ready." And I was lucky to have Palmer, who had a fresh eye on that, catching, the moment to the moment.
Hi, John Palmer.
How's the lighting? Expo 67, whoop-de-doo! So we've got this Bell and Howell cameras, it's from World War II. It belongs to the Canadian Corporation, the Canadian Film Board. Somehow, they can't give us money, but they can loan us this camera. So you want to know about the baby? Well, you got to go to the handheld 100-foot magazine, Bell and Howell, East Kodacolor. It's like Kodacolor, right? Eastman color. So there was this notion that you shouldn't disturb the camera particularly when you turn it on. There's this whole thing about it's got to be raw, it's got to be unembellished. The beauty of the unembellished. Okay, so there I am, sleeping on the roof of the Filmmaker Cinematheque, contemplating, in my sleeping bag, contemplating the Empire State Building, right? Meanwhile, downstairs, these geniuses, Barbara Rose, Kenneth Anger, Jack Smith. Oh. Stan Brakhage. Window Water Baby movie. His great piece, Window Water Baby movie. Well, get Robert and John wired up good, and we're going to go there. So I'm pretty sure this was Robert's inspiration, and he decided we're doing this. So then it's a send up. At this point, it's man the barricades. To the barricades, yeah.
the very infamous birth scene, live birth scene in the Miracles of Modern Medicine film. I think it's important to ask, why was that scene so shocking? Why does it remain, right, so shocking? One of the reasons, I think, is that it, because it's so aggressively framed, medically framed, it so clearly denaturalizes the miracle of birth, right? It presents a very graphic version of, what we assume to be a bloodless nativity, right? I mean, that's what he's kind of delivering to the public.
So then it became just a matter of doing it, which of course was terrifying and difficult, and we had to get permission, and I had to speak to the dad, and he was just a lovely Canadian man, a nice, ordinary sort of worker person, like a lumberjack or somebody, just a nice guy. And we were explaining that this is, we gave him the pitch, the sales pitch, the expo sales pitch. He bought it.
Yes, the future of a normal child, to run, to play, to work, and enjoy his world.
What about can you tell us about the happening you did with Warhol, Tristan Tzara's Heart of Gas?
Well, it was not with Warhol. Warhol was in it. It was a famous piece written in the Dada time, Le Cœur à Gaz. And we did it with John Ashbery, Andy Warhol, Turk Leclerc, and a whole bunch of people, because it had been done like that by the Surrealists in the 30s, in the early 30s. And Andy came and did it because he was co-editor of the magazine we had with Tim Baum and Gerard Malanga.
And how did it go?
Well, it went very well. It went very well indeed. But again, it was a crazy product that didn't bring any money.
Yeah, but it almost didn't bring Andy Warhol, right? You had to...
Well, at one point, an hour before the show, he called me and said he was so scared he'd been shitting all day in his pants, literally. And he said, I can't come because I'm scared. I've never read anything. So I said, if you don't show up, I'm going to come and get you by the collar and bring you in. So he came in, and I had him sit on top of a ladder during the show, the hour and 15 minutes of the show. And we had to do it a second time because it was so full of people. So he did it again on the ladder again, and it was a lot of fun. Ingrid Superstar read the text, and it was one of those creative things that we were doing.
Radioactive isotopes are more and more important in the study of the exact function of the cells and organs of the body.
What's interesting about Robert is how he disappears into the work, where he barely gets credit for the work. And he's always kind of on the periphery of it. And in all of these various movements that he's been a part of, he's never been the center. He's never been the face of it, right? He's always blended into it. Like, he has his scrapbooks and things, barely has any kind of hold on to anything that he's been a part of. And it's actually through this project that we are starting to see the colossal scale of the Cordier opus.
Whether he knew it or not, he was delivering a revolutionary new film for you and me. We were those Expo babies. And it's extremely apropos that we found it. We found that film, and then we came looking for him and tried to put it all together.
You found again the film we did at Expo 67, 50 years later. Why? I don't know. Where was it during 50 years? I don't know.
was lost in files.
And that is a brief excerpt from Miracles in Modern Medicine, a film that's been screened in public only once last fall since its controversial debut back at Expo 67. It's being screened tomorrow night here in St. John's on the campus of Memorial University. Robert, let's start with you. How did this film come to be?
It came to be that Alain Resnais, whom I knew in Paris because I helped work on Hiroshima Mon Amour at the time. You know, I mean, I have done over 200 plays. People regard today, oh, why didn't you make movies? I don't think movies are more important than plays. They're not, you know, they're not. I insist on that, they're not, you know. Theater is a commitment again tomorrow, again tomorrow, again tomorrow, through today, through the insistence of today to be real under the bullshit. There is always regrets through choices, but if you do the choices, you have to deal with the regrets and their consequences of those choices and their articulation. What's on my mind these days? I don't know. I'm just thinking for a while, trying to deal with the difficulties of eventually you disappear, you know, I mean, there it is, it's around the corner, and you have to deal with it. Every morning, you know, you go about to shave, and you say, well, maybe this is the last time. And, oh, I'm gonna die. Yeah, you are. We all are. Maybe that's what I'm thinking about it, but can't start thinking about opening a repertory company in Afghanistan, for instance. You know, that is impossible. And no, I mean, I don't know, take it day by day.
So when did you stop? When did you decide you yourself weren't going to act in your own pieces?
Forget or stop?
When did you decide that you were not interested in acting in your own plays for the most part?
I didn't decide any of this. What is this?
This is the trailer. We're just using, this is the one we're using simply to raise money.
Yeah, I understood that, but I don't think I saw this part of it.
Fender and lots of things in Paris. So there's a lot of material.
Which one is that?
No, that's for me. That's not for you. So that's not together. Oh, maybe this one. Let's see. The first thing we really did together, or one of the biggest things, was this.
Yeah.
Engine Fender.
Sound 402.
Yeah, that was another first, you know, like being architecture photographer from one day to the other. He asked me, why don't you do this, the camera of the film? I said, you're crazy. I've never touched a camera. He said, no, the way you do the theater photography, because I had gotten into that, and you can do film. So we borrowed a camera from Arakawa, a small handheld camera, and I did 3 rolls of 100 meters, black and white, handheld. And then I was director of photography on a set of a feature film.
Always sex and fear and freaks and money.
We went together to the Maisel brothers, and Robert asked them, what kind of advice would you give to a woman that is going to shoot a feature film?
Yeah.
And the answer was, the camera's too heavy, a woman can't do it.
We didn't realize that then. You know, pioneers don't know they pioneered. They're trying to get to the end of the jungle.
So why did you do it? What made you think, well, Dottie can shoot this film?
Because I thought she could, and she did.
I was very scared doing it. Yeah, very much.
We walked all over skewing corpses.
Avec Fender l'Indien, c'était comme Jackson Pollock un peu. Il y avait un côté Jackson Pollock dans cette œuvre. À la fois par en dessous, malin dans le tournage, dans le montage, le découpage, et en même temps un dripping sur l'écran de sentiments, de violence. Puis alors il y avait à l'époque un côté alors à la fois rebelle, révolutionnaire, voulant changer le monde.
We were able, even for a small budget film, to block the 6th Avenue.
We blocked
one
the whole
Sunday.
6th Avenue for the death, the girl running down, and Fender is on the roof with his assistant, he said, and she explodes. And then dogs started to bark, bells started to ring.
And there's a shot, you know, after the killing. I was kind of going around her. She dropped dead on 6th Avenue, and I was walking around her, shooting her.
Well, except that the film got banned for a year and a half.
Because the black guy said 5 times motherfucker. That was enough.
You know, there was the love affair between a black girl and a white girl, and dope, and, you know, the scene as it was in rock and roll, and as I knew it, we were ahead of the time. The Minister of Culture who wrote the liberation song, said, "Me alive, this film will not come out in France." And then we were invited to festival, and the first festival was at Toulon, and we got the Grand Prix du Jury, and so we were land on a spin. We got the Golden Ducat in Mannheim, and then in Locarno, and suddenly we were in Europe.
Pour moi, Robert Cordier, c'est un vieux nouveau-né. Voilà. Eux, ils ont ça entier. Cette ouverture, cette passion du monde, voilà. C'est un poète qui a la passion du monde comme un enfant.
La pièce, c'est une pièce sur la transmission théâtrale, comme Robert me l'a transmis, et qui est en fait une filiation directe en fait sur des techniques de jeu.
Geppetto, c'est pas le père de Pinocchio, non? C'est toi? Ben moi, c'est Robert.
Quand je parle d'Hamlet qui a marché dans la merde, moi j'ai des grands souvenirs avec Hamlet et Ophélie, avec Robert, une scène avec Gérald Laroche où il marche dans la merde comme ça.
Arrête! T'avais super bien commencé, là, mais tu sais pas te renouveler, putain! Il faut te donner des ordres. Tu te rends compte que ton pied est dans la merde, ça va aller 1 fois, 2 fois, 3 fois, après ça lasse.
Voilà, c'est plein de petits détails qui rappellent en fait cette transmission comme ça de l'art théâtral, à la fois de l'art théâtral d'ailleurs et puis de l'art du jeu en général, que ce soit cinématographique ou pour le théâtre.
Achetez mes bananes, achetez mes bananes. Qui veut des bananes? Bananes, bananes, bananes. Achetez mes bananes, monsieur, des bananes, madame, des bananes, monsieur, des bananes.
Bananes, bananes de l'île, achetez mes bananes, elles sont fraîches, madame.
Non, madame, vous ne pouvez pas acheter des bananes à un immigré. Il est noir. C'est les blancs qui vendent des bananes. Tu n'as pas le droit de vendre des bananes. Va-t'en avec tes bananes. Donne-moi tes bananes.
So you've been studying Commedia dell'arte?
Yeah, it's personally my favorite kind of theater. I really like the kind of over-the-top, but also kind of surreal feel of it, you know?
Yeah, well, it's a feeling of the moment. You know, it's interesting because it's what's happening right here, right now. That seems to be the point.
Is it the point?
The point is what's happening.
Yeah.
Not what people are saying. The texts come because something has been said and something happens and somebody thinks about something with his body, with her body, you know, and gives it an outside form. You know, if I slap you, you're going to feel it.
Yeah.
If I want to slap you, you're going to feel it if I feel it.
You're from Bash, a town in Belgium, which has this extraordinary tradition of a masked festival for Carnival. It's a fundamentally theatrical town. Was there something about growing up in Bash that called you to the theater?
It has something to do with it. How much of it, I don't know. The mask was part of my childhood. I saw those things all year round and around and me. So it connected to a rope leading to the well where that sort of creative. But I was a creative child from the start. I danced with girls and we did a little professional thing. But I was always in it and I was good at it. My sister says, my big sister says, but I didn't envision to do it a business or make a living out of it. I thought it was en plus. And so it's a flatland country, little farmers, little workers, and the home of one of the greatest painters in the history of painting, Magritte. And I saw him much later in New York in the street, and I didn't have the guts to cross the street and going to talk to him. And I'll regret it all my life. He was standing on Madison Avenue with his bowler hat. Ah la la, the beat of all the great jazz drummers and rock and rollers. It's a city which was founded by Charles V, Charles Quint, the great king. It's close to France, and it's close to a lot of strategic things. It is a debauch
of dancing. You know, everybody dances, there's drums, there's a music, and there's a long preparation for it. So I would say that about half the life of the city, which is a historical city, is bound to this, and people are very proud of it. You can see what is now the Théâtre Municipal and was it at the time, which is the theater of the city. And I did my debut at not yet 17. And opening night, the theater was packed. And I came in, I had to enter at the beginning of the play with the leading lady. And just before entering, I said, I'm not going on. I'm too scared. This is not for me. And I was running away, and she grabbed me, and she said, oh, yes, you are coming. Who am I going to act with if you go away? And she dragged me on stage. And the next 2 days later, the papers came out saying I was a brilliant young new actor. And that's how my career started. Bravo. Qu'est-ce que vous voulez là? Behind me is the school I went until I was 15. A school I hated. I hated school except French courses, dictations. I was the first there. I hated mathematics. I hated everything except lecturing, reading poetry of Rimbaud and others, and writing poetry and other thing, and the painting classes and the design classes. The rest, I just hated it. Hated it. Fuck school. The Gilles character is an explosion of joy. It's the coming back of the spring, the coming back of the light, the coming back of the right blood. And you can't do the Gilles anywhere but in Binche.